Happy New Year from the Wild Drop. One of our resolutions in 2023 is to bring you more of the stories that you want. That means this year we'll have deep dives on big products, learn more about the science behind the oils, and of course hear lots and lots of stories of the core and the foundation of Young Living, which of course is my mother and father, Mary and Gary Young. So here's to another great year of community, connection, and wonderful opportunities. And thank you so much for tuning in once again. Hello and welcome to Young Living's podcast, The Wild Drop. My name is Jacob Young, your host. Young Living is the world leader in producing and distributing premium essential oils. And this podcast will provide you with drops of information about Young Living, including stories, history, product information, lots of little fun facts, and even more. Today, we have Chris Opfer on the podcast for the first time. Well, Chris, what do you think of our little nook here?
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm super excited to be here. Again, it's an honor. This is a really dope room. I love it. Love the back wall here. Love all the oils. Excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, anytime. Well, I think we should probably tell our audience who you are and what you do, and I guess kind of like why you're here.
Well, I'm here because you asked me. No. My name is Chris Opfer. I'm Royal Crown Diamond here, and it's a little bit different, right? Because I'm actually a second generation Royal Crown Diamond, and I guess my story is kind of a lot like yours, right? I mean, we were raised in this company, you know. So yeah, my mom actually enrolled in 1994. Our original member number was 1236, as in there was 1,235 people before her, it's kind of where we got our start, and I think I was about 10 at the time. So I was raised in this, you were born in this, or kind of the same boat.
Yeah. What has been your wild story, I guess?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, so again, my mom enrolls when I was 10. She'd been in natural health for a couple decades at that point. And, you know, your dad would say the same thing. There were essential oils on the market back then. I mean, if we're just going to, speak truthfully and plainly, right? They weren't great. And so my mom really didn't want a whole lot to do with essential oils. My sister really wanted an Essential 7. It was at a kind of like a local store, like cooking store where we lived. And my mom kind of refused at first, then eventually broke down and got my sister an Essential 7. For those of you listening who have no idea what an Essential 7 is, that was kind of our original starter kit that your dad created. So my mom got that, saw that these were actually a little bit different. And then a few years later, she ended up going up to Wyoming, so I'm from Colorado. And Gary, your dad was teaching up there. And she went up there for two reasons. A, to see if your dad was crazy, and B, to kind of dissuade herself of these, or disabuse herself of these ideas that, hey, this is not a real product, right? And so she gets up there, she realizes these are absolutely real. Your dad's absolutely brilliant. He's absolutely genuine. And she kind of cornered him and said, man, why would you choose network marketing? Like all these other companies, why would you choose network marketing? And she said, these are great products, but we got to have another way to get them out. And he said, Vicky, there is no other way to get them out. Like, this is it. This is because how would somebody know if they see my bottle of rose or my bottle of lavender next to another bottle of rose or lavender on a shelf? And so she kind of got it from that point. And she started teaching and doing a bunch of classes. And it was a family affair. Like, part of my chores were licking stamps and packing boxes and handing out oils at classes, because we'd have classes at our house. And, we'd go do, big events, with your parents. And my mom would often let me teach, parts, which is pretty cool. So sometimes, it was my job was hanging out with you in the hallway with remote control cars or whatever. You never really gave me a run for my money, but Joseph definitely did. So I won't embarrass you too much. But
those RC cars were a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
And every event that we went to, obviously, it's like the parents were doing their thing. The kids didn't really want to sit and listen, so we would go out into the hallways and just wreak havoc, essentially. But we were pretty good. Besides Joseph, like you said,
respectfully, yeah, we would, yeah.
So that was. Is there like one specific moment that you remember at one of the events where we were hanging out besides the RC cars? I remember the RC cars super well.
Yeah. So I remember when we went to the National Western Stock Show, and your dad was looking at some Percherons. Right, I guess there's some of those horses there that he was looking at purchasing, and I remember we were sitting around one of the horse trailers, and you were there, and I forget what we were chatting about, and I look over, and Joseph was just gone. And
Typical.
I freaked out, right? So, because your parents had left me in charge of you guys, and again, we all make mistakes in that regard. Your parents probably shouldn't have done that, but Joseph just disappears, and luckily I hear him like giggling from the other side of that horse trailer. I was thinking, okay, good. Like we get to still be Royal Crown Diamonds. We still have an income. We're good. So yeah, it was always just kind of like family hanging out, man. That's what it was always like.
I absolutely just, and I've said this numerous times on this podcast. This doesn't feel like a business, and I know a lot of people probably don't understand what I mean by that. But to me, everybody that's part of this is family to me.
Yeah,
it truly feels that way. It doesn't feel like you're my coworker. We all feel like friends and family here.
Yep.
And that's what I absolutely love about like our community and our environment. And it's funny that you talk about Joseph just magically disappearing sometimes. My mom does the exact same thing. So, she complains all the time that he just randomly disappears. And I have to tell her, I'm like, well, he does follow after you. My dad called my mom the Phantom of the House because she'd be there for a second. My dad would turn around to grab something off the counter, and turn around and she'd disappear, and then she'd just like reappear an hour later to go do like knitting or sewing or whatever it may be. So
he comes by it honestly. At least we know that.
Yeah. What is like, you talked about your upbringing and how you were introduced into the world of Young Living, but that's not necessarily like your story.
True. Yeah. So I guess that's the interesting part is, so when we're raised in this, right, it really does become part of who we are. And, just as you're doing and have done, and, as both your mom and your dad encouraged you, my mom did the same thing of, we all kind of have our own path. And so I knew, despite, again, growing up in this company, traveling with my mom, doing all those things, I knew that I really wanted to become a lawyer. And jokingly, although I don't think she was, maybe that joking, but your mom actually offered me my first legal job. I was like 15. I told her I wanted to be a lawyer, and she's like, "Well, you let me know when you graduate. We'll hire you. So, so I ended up going to college, went to law school, and graduated law school, and then became a prosecutor. And I became a prosecutor because I really wanted to help people. I knew it was a way that I could keep our community safe. I could help victims, victims of crimes, and also I could help defendants, right, who are in a bad spot, who needed maybe some direction or whatever. And so did that for 5.5 years, and I know you are too. So I know I'm a good company, but I'm definitely a mama's boy. And so I talked to my mom pretty much every day. We would talk my cases. We'd talk, Young Living, and so she actually asked me if I'd consider coming back to Young Living and doing this full time, and so back in 2016 I did that, and so that was kind of how I ended up that full circle, that was a change, right? Going from being a prosecutor to doing this. But what was so interesting to me is I had a lot of people ask, right? Like, hey, why would you go from being a DA to being a Young Living distributor? And for me, it's because both careers are helping people, right? I mean, if we were, in a network marketing company that didn't have good products, or if we had good products but had a really, aggressive comp plan that took advantage of people, I wouldn't have done it. And so talking about comp plan, like, go check out the income disclosure online, right? But there's not a lot of careers where you can genuinely help people.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty lucky that I got to have 2 of them so far.
I think that's fantastic that you make the comparison that what you were doing before and why that transition was so easy for you was because you're doing what you love, which was helping people out.
Absolutely.
And, I get asked all the time, so what business is Young Living in? And I always tell people, we're in the business of helping people, taking care of people. And I just love that you made that comparison. And that's why that transition was in a way like easy for you, because it was doing the same thing, just slightly different.
Right. Well, yeah, because we're all about helping people live happier and healthier, and because the other thing that was a little bit different was going from, pretty well split 50-50 as far as men and women to, I think we're 95% women, something like that in Young Living.
I don't know if it's that high, but it is. The men definitely are outnumbered by a large margin. So
right. I mean, so aside from us starting like a dating program, right? I mean, we probably, that was a little bit of a transition too. But like you said, it's family.
Yeah.
And so I had people ask me, you and I were chatting about that, like, what was it like to now work in a company that's mainly women, and I didn't really view it that way because it really does feel like a family here. Also, I'm pretty oblivious to a lot of things like that, and I asked my wife right when we first started, I said, does this bother you at all? Is the fact that like I talk to women every day, all day, does that bother you? And she's like, oh, honey, no, like you're not, you wouldn't be stupid enough to do anything. And for those listeners who don't know, like my wife's actually a divorce attorney. So I married up just like you married up with Kate. And when us men recognize that, we'll never jeopardize it. But also I would lose miserably in court. Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say,
yeah.
You just know better because you'd lose at the end of the day.
Exactly. So as long as we know our place, we're safe, right? So, yeah, but it was interesting working. I mean, it's just being family. It's like, you talk to somebody, and even my mom talked about that a lot. Like, she really considered your dad like a brother to her. Greg Johnson, who's a Royal Crown Diamond, he passed away last year, was like a brother to her. This is always a family.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's always been. And that's what makes this so fun to me, and getting to work with these people every day, because everybody cares about each other.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you, and maybe this isn't a question that you necessarily have an answer for, but by being outnumbered and being a guy in this business, right, in this community, this organization, whatever you want to call it, are there pros and are there cons to it? And if so, what are those?
That's a good question. I mean, so one of the biggest pros is there's never a line for the bathroom. I'll tell you that right now. So you always walk by those long lines for women. There's never a line for men. So, I would say that there's really, as far as pros and cons, there really aren't any that I can think of. And again, I think it just kind of goes back to that family thing. And I do get, I would say, I don't want to say get pigeonholed, but I do get asked some questions, right, from distributors, and they're always it's always basically the same question of like, we've got a customer, and they say, hey, I love these products so much, and how do I get my husband involved? How do I get my husband to like these products? It's actually kind of fun. I mean, being able to actually give some advice on that sort of thing.
Yeah. I get that asked a lot too. I mean, at Men's Camp, which we are going to be bringing back. So
super excited for it.
Wink, wink for those of you, hopefully this year. That was one of the like biggest questions that we always got asked at like Men's Camp. It's like, how can I bring like more guys on board? How do I get them involved? And I always say like, I think a lot of people kind of make the mistake of saying, well, this is more like a feminine product. Across all the products in Young Living, they are split right down the middle. They're for both. They're for everybody. Yep. I mean, obviously you have like him and hers, which obviously one is for guys and one's for the gals. But everything else you can use as a guy. Just like the Orange Blossom facial scrub. I know that's more intended for like facial care for gals, but I use it on like a weekly basis.
And you have
it's
a beautiful
fantastic.
face. I mean, look
it's
at
great.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. We have the Shoutron line, which I always highly recommend. I mean, the beard oil. I don't know if you use the beard oil.
Do, yeah.
I enjoy the beard oil, even though I don't have as great as a beard as you do.
You'll get there. And we both pale in comparison to Scott Schuler.
That's very, very true. But there's so much that you can do. I mean, like the cough drops, thieves, whatever it may be, anything is a way for people to get started. For me, I have found the best success with my friends of, kind of starting them on the path of like a healthier lifestyle of Zing. All of my buddies would drink other energy brands, which we won't name. And I always tell them, it's like, it's not bad to have those like once in a while. But with the way that they drink, if they drank alcohol as they did their energy drinks, they'd be considered raging alcoholics. And I told them, guys, I know, trust me on this. Just try this out. Let me know what you think. And if you like it, we'll get you some more. And now I've got a bunch of friends here in Utah and actually a few dealerships that buy pallets from us now because they love it so much. And they've just noticed an overall improvement in day-to-day life. They don't have that like drop off from the buzz that they get and whatnot. So there's so many ways that you can help someone get started, whether it is your husband, your wife, your significant other, whatever it may be. Just find a product that you love and share that.
Absolutely.
That's all you have to do.
Absolutely. Well, and I think maybe it's just me, but I think for men in particular, make it experiential for them, right? So again, share some cool little pain relief cream with them if they're coming back from a hard day at work, or like you said, Ningxia Zing is great, right? And we have like Power Jais and these other things that we can take and use every day. And it's kind of funny because there's, I think if you can get these guys to have an experience, and remember, I'm just going to say this, like I think most men hate change, right? I'm definitely one of those. I'll tell you, I had a pair of shorts that were my favorite shorts. I had them from high school, which is kind of sad that I had them that long.
You've like had those shorts since high school?
I had those shorts since high school, and I married my wife. I'm going to see, we got married over 11 years ago. I still had those shorts when we got married. And she kept trying to, I kept pulling them out of the trash. She kept throwing them away.
So your waist size hasn't changed since then, is what
I
you're
didn't
saying.
say that. I didn't say that they fit well.
Oh, okay.
I just said I still had them.
Okay, gotcha.
And I would wear them. And I didn't want to get rid of them, right? Because I was used to them. I loved them. They did what I needed them to do. And my wife told me they actually fell apart in the wash. I don't know if I believe it, as I'm sitting here talking to you. I probably should have questioned that. But the thing is, I think a lot of guys don't like change, but the nice part is we have some of these products that people can switch out. Like you're talking about the Zing with energy drinks, right? And like the nitros, that's another great substitute. Even like toothpaste and, the deep relief roll-on. I mean, there's a lot of things that a lot of men are already using, right? And so we can just switch those out. And my favorite call to get, and I'm sure you've had this too, where it's like, hey man, I don't know if, like you have a friend call you or something like that. If you share with them, like, I don't know if you're aware of this. This stuff actually works, right? And you're like, I know. They're like, no, you don't get it. It actually works. And I was like, yeah. What do you think I'm doing here, right? So, I think that's a really good way to reach men and these are just people. I mean, this is your dad and everybody else who's designed these products they were designed kind of for everybody, like you said.
They were designed for everybody, and I think a big part that people also forget is a lot of the products that, well, I would say a good 80 to 90% of the products that we have now were formulated in mind of someone that had a specific thing going on or a way to help them kind of substitute something out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time that was something that my dad noticed in the world, that like, hey, this toothpaste isn't good for you. It's terrible. Zing, I'm going to brag a little bit right here about Zing. Okay?
Brag. Let's do it. Let's hear it.
I bring this up quite a bit, but I'm the reason because of Zing. Once again, was playing video games back in middle school. We were sponsored by a certain energy drink. And so on stream while playing video games and in tournaments, we would drink these, as like promotional stuff and whatnot. When my dad found that out, he said, yeah, no, that's really bad for you. But I know you love carbonation, so I'll make something for you. And that's how Zing came to be.
That's awesome.
As that healthy substitute.
So I got one for you then. So when you're talking about that, and that's what I love about Young Living, and I love about your dad, was that it was, we're always in pursuit, and like your dad was always in pursuit, and the people who are working here are always in the pursuit of filling that need and making something better.
Fulfilling a purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And so the Young Living hand sanitizer, you know about this one? So we were...
Maybe I do.
Yeah, I think you probably do. But so we were on one of the cruises. So we used to, go on cruises, right? And with Young Living, and your dad gathered up my sister, Dallas Harding, and Courtney Harding, and myself, and pulled us into like an empty dining room. He sat us down. He said, "What do you guys want?" And we all just kind of looked at him, right? So like, what? So we have Gary Young sitting here talking to us, asking us what we want. He's like, "Yeah, what do you want? What do you need in your life?" And he had his, your mom talks about his yellow notepads, right? Mm-hmm. So he had his yellow notepad out, and he said, "Yeah, what do you guys want? What do you, what's important to you?" And we all just kind of looked at each other. And I honestly don't even remember who said it, but somebody said, "Well, the hand sanitizer on the ship is terrible. It dries out your hands. It smells awful." And he starts feverishly writing down what we were talking about. And then, a few minutes later, he ran off to another meeting or something like that, I'm sure. And what's funny is I can't remember if it was at that next convention or, again, it was another event pretty close by. We have this hand sanitizer now, right? And it's better than anything else out there. Doesn't dry out your hands. Smells good.
I completely agree.
Right? But your dad was filling a need. And not only that, but he was bettering something out there, like, bettering your energy drinks that you like. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
We we kind of spoke briefly about purpose with everything.
Right.
And everything that we have is a perfect example of the mindset of purpose over profit. And my dad spoke about that all the time. He's like, when you look at a lot of these companies, sometimes they do make great products, right? But a lot of the times they just push out quantity over quality. And what that ends up, meaning for them is cash. They're like, oh, we just got to push out as much so we can drive profit margins, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
All that stuff. To my dad, that didn't matter to him. While he still thought about like good business practices and whatnot, for him, it was all about who this can help and how many it can help. And who does this suit, and that Thieves hand sanitizer, the Zing, everything that we've talked about, it's all played a purpose over profit. And I know to some people they're like, well, that's not a great way to think about it. But for me, that's what makes us different. That's what makes us the best, is because we think that way. And that I've had so many people talk about how amazing the hand sanitizer is for the exact reason that you talked about, that it doesn't dry out your hands.
Yep.
It doesn't smell awful. And, I just like, it's almost kind of like a lotion in a sense.
Yeah. well, and that's almost what you and Kate did with the simplified line, right? Like, and again, kudos to you guys for putting that together, man. Awesome products. I love it. And you guys, because you were looking for, at least my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because it's kind of weird me telling you this, but you were looking at all the plugins, this and when you walk by an aisle at whether it's at Walmart or the mall or whatever, you get that headache, right? And that's the stuff people are putting in their house, but yet we want something that smells like orange and or that has that orange and vanilla smell. And so you did that again. I mean, you followed your dad's legacy and in Young Living's legacy, and you created something and you added on top of that, man. So it's pretty awesome you did that.
Thank you. I hope it's kind of like the next step, the right step for kind of where we need to go. Kind of like you said, we saw an issue. We saw that there could be a purpose for it, a healthier life, style, purpose, a way to introduce people to make that change, not necessarily like a hard change, but a better transition for you. It's been extremely well received. The winter set is still available till February 1st if you're interested in that.
Go get it. Everyone's
talking about pink champagne. We might make it a single. We might not. Wink, wink. So, you never know. But yeah, I really love that we've always prioritized that purpose, that we've always focused on a purpose and where we want to go and what we want to do with that and what's next.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing I liked about and really actually appreciate about the simplified line as well is it's a good entry point for a lot of people. I mean, not everybody is willing to go research everything about every oil and every molecule, and
it's a little overwhelming.
It can be, right? And so, but the thing is we want our house to smell good. We want it to smell welcoming. We want to have that calming effect. And so it's a really easy switch for people to make. And especially when they smell something and they go, oh yeah, I really, this reminds me of blank, right? And they can fill that in. And yet we know that they're not inhaling those endocrine disruptors, right? From those candles or those plugins. And so they get to be happier and healthier. And that's what's amazing to me. It's like, can you imagine? I mean, if everybody got to live just a little bit happier and a little bit healthier, and we were talking about driving, right? Before this, it's like, man, what if people were just a little bit less ragey, right? Just a little bit, they're a little more kind to each other. They smiled a little bit more. They were a little more relaxed.
Had a little bit of common sense diffusing in their car.
There's that too. Your dad would talk about that. But it's. I mean, that's one of the things. There's very few companies, I feel, and very few products that can really have an impact like that. I mean, a change in society. I mean, if you think about oils, there are a lot of places now, right? You can buy oils all over the place. They're not like ours. But that only exists because of what your mom and your dad did and what you're continuing to do.
He is and by he, I mean my dad. He is the father of the modern day essential oil movement. I mean, when you go back to 1994, you were absolutely right. There was not a market for essential oils. There wasn't education. There wasn't knowledge. There wasn't anything on, these healthier alternatives, substitutes, this lifestyle, right? And I think what's been really good to see over these last few years is more people are starting to pay attention to their health.
Yep.
And specifically what they can do that's easy, that's not, going to disrupt their lives, essentially. It's kind of like, when you have to go on this diet, and this diet is like ridiculous, crazy, nasty, super healthy food, and you're like, I just don't want to do it. And most people don't end up doing it because it's difficult, and we don't like change. Not just men in general, but like for all of us, change is hard, especially with what we're used to. Where with all the products that we have, it's not that drastic of a change. It's, it's changing for the better, but an easier change to that. It's an easy transition into it, if that makes sense.
Well, it really can. And I don't think you should buy something or use something if you're not getting anything from it.
And
right?
continue to buy it.
Right. And your dad, I was listening to actually one of your tapes, or one of the tapes of your dad, and he was talking about some emotional oils, right? And he was saying, well, if you use Harmony, for example, and you don't feel like you're getting what you need from that, try Joy, try something else, because everybody's body is different.
It's completely different.
But as I know, I feel a difference when I put my oils on. I know, and what I love too, and my kids don't even know any better. I mean, you were raised in this, and so was I, and so are my kids. And I have 2 kids that are 6 and 8. They've had oils on them since day one, and they're not even going to know that. I mean, their bodies don't have those nasty chemicals lodged in their livers in the way that other people do, and so it's just a great thing that we get to give that to people, and then it goes back to that family, And this kind of what kind of sets me up in this company and thinking about it the way that I do. So there's a convention. This is probably 2018, 19 maybe. Mm-hmm. We're at the Marriott in Salt Lake City. And there was, I was getting on the elevator, and there were these 2 women that had like a big like dolly cart full of Ningxia, right? Because that's about right. That's about right. Had some zing on there, so make you happy. Yeah, okay. Make me happy too, right? And so they're getting on there, and they're all excited. And I started chatting with them. They started asking me some questions, right? Because the Royal Crown Diamond lanyard that we all have, and what was interesting, the thing that stuck with me so much about chatting with these women was obviously not the palette, essentially, of Ningxia, because that's not abnormal, right? I mean, that's par for the course for this company. What was amazing, though, is they were telling me, so normally, for those of you that don't know, like getting a hotel room can be really hard during convention, right?
Oh, extremely hard.
And so these 2 women drove, I forget where they drove from, it was like Alabama or something like that. I mean, they drove halfway across the country, no hotel room. They show up at the Marriott. They think they're going to check in. And if you've ever been to a convention, that's a no-no, right? Mm-hmm. You're not getting in there. Those rooms are booked a year out. So they think that they're going to check in. They find out they're not getting a room. There's apparently a Diamond Crown or Royal, I don't know who, and again, I don't even know who it was like down the desk from them, overheard this, and they just so happened to have an extra room, and they gave these 2 women this room. And not like, hey, and then you owe me. It was, here you go, stay for free, enjoy yourself. And it's like, even at our events, right? Even just who we are and the people we attract, and in using these products and being in gratitude, like your dad talked about, like that's pretty awesome. Like how many other companies would somebody just give you a room and you showed up, and freely?
Yeah.
And so that just really stuck with me, and that just makes me really proud to be a part of this company and in everything that we do in the lives that we can change.
The persona, I know this is kind of like such a millennial word to say, but the vibe that we put off as well, it attracts beautiful, amazing people.
Yep.
There are I work with a lot of people outside of Young Living. I love cars, so I get to meet with a bunch of different people inside the car community. And just in the car community alone, and it could just be the car community, I have met very few people that are just outright awful people. And it's the exact same here. It attracts the right people, and one of the biggest reasons why I love the car community is if there is something going on, like we just had a huge car show for a terminally ill kid last week, mm-hmm. and it was posted in an hour, and they're like, hey, he's probably going to pass away tonight. He was in his hospital room. Within an hour, they had 12,000 people show up outside his hospital room.
That's awesome.
Just ready there to support. And I've seen the exact same thing within our community. It's like, hey, I need help with this, or like, hey, does anybody have any information on this? And everybody's there, just willing to help, wanting to help. Our foundation trips are like that. Everybody just wants to help. Everybody wants to be a part of it. They want to do their part. They want to they just want to do what they possibly can do. And so I just love that we have that within our company, that we attract those people. And, the saying, kill them with kindness, goes a long way. And we, unfortunately, these last few years, the world has lost a lot of positivity.
It has.
And I think it's kind of one of our things that we need to use our positive energy, vibe, persona, just our positivity in general that we have inside our community to be a driving force throughout this world. And I think we're doing an amazing job of that.
I agree. I really do. And I think that it's so amazing whether you're just a product user, right? And I say just, like, don't minimize that, right? But if you're listening to this and you're a product user, maybe you've shared with a friend, maybe you've shared with 5 friends, maybe you're actively building a business, or whatever it is, you are a part of a company with heart and part of a company who cares. And I see that even being in this building, right? And talking with you, knowing your parents, knowing all of these Young Living members, customers, brand partners around the world. It's extraordinary, and it doesn't exist in a lot of places. And that's why it really, when I say, I told you it was an honor to be here, I mean that, right? It's an honor to be here, part of this company, and being a part of something to where we can, like we've said, help people live happier and healthier and bring some heart back.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we ask this of everybody, but is there like a story of a certain product or products that you absolutely love, highly recommend, would just shout it from the top of the world if you could, type thing? Do you have some of those stories or mentions or shout outs?
Oh man, I mean, there's so many products that I like, and I don't just say that in like, I mean, they're like, even when I pack, I'm like, okay, what am I going to bring, right? I think for me in our house, and in sharing with people too, it's the same thing. The products that I like the most are the ones that are kind of what you'd say like the ditch and switch products, right?
Yeah.
So even like Simplified, or honestly, one of my favorite products is the Thieves Household Cleaner. I love it, and for 2 different reasons. So before I had kids, I loved that. I mean, you're a car guy. I actually would use it to clean like the wheels of my car and stuff like that. It's amazing what it can do in the shop and in the garage. But once I had kids, then you start caring about everything. You're like, well, what happens if my kids get access underneath the sink? Well, we didn't have to worry about that too much because we don't have that junk in our house, right? So when you can connect with people in those ways, and you're like, hey, you're a big pet person, you don't have to worry about your pets in the same way. So I love those types of products. I love the Thieves line. That's probably my favorite overall line that we have. I wear Shoe-Tran every day as a cologne, right? And so that's kind of an easy ditch and switch type thing as well. Love Power Jives. I'm a big fan of multigreens.
Multigreens is fantastic.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Because we just know we don't get enough greens in our diet. So
if you're not a fan of mineral essence, that's also a good substitute. It's still great.
Is anybody a fan of at least how it tastes? Is anybody?
I can't say there are. If you do, all the power to you.
We need it. We need the minerals. It's just it can be a little firm to take. Would that be the right word?
A little sour.
Yeah, it works though. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Agiles. I mean, I was amazed, once I kind of hit my 30s, I was like, oh yeah, hey, that doesn't feel as good anymore, right? Or I can't sleep on a hard floor anymore.
Yeah.
And so I actually take Agiles a lot, man, with the frankincense resin in there, the wintergreen, the turmeric in there. I love that. And I'm a pretty avid fly fisherman, and I've got a drift boat that I row, and you row for an entire day. It's something like 10,000 oar strokes you take.
Wow.
Yeah, and that'll, that can make for kind of a rough evening and the next morning. But I'm a big fan of Agiles for that reason too.
Agiles is one of my favorites too. I take that before I work out and after I work out as well. And I notice when I miss a day with it or miss like a week, especially like when we're practicing for jousting, if I didn't remind myself to take it, I definitely feel it afterwards. So it makes a world of difference.
Well, and again, that goes back to that experiential product that we have, right? I mean, again, they're all like that, and you really do notice a difference. I feel the same with multigreens. I mean, if I don't take it, like right around like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, why am I so tired? I'm like, oh yeah, I skipped my multigreens this morning by accident or something like that. So, yeah. Again, big fan of those products. I really like the whole Shoe-Tran line. If you guys haven't tried the shaving cream, it's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, great to travel with too. You get a super smooth shave, and that again has wintergreen in it too. So it's pretty awesome. I mean, us with beards, we don't shave as much anymore, right? But when we do,
Still got to trim it,
Yeah. So, but that's when we talk about sharing with people, I really think, we have to remember, here's what I would say about that, right? Because we were chatting about this before. Everybody has a goal, right? Everybody's coming to Young Living seeking to change something. And I'll be the first to say, I think we actually have a product for everybody. And I realize most companies can't say that.
I'd hope so. We have over 700 or something close to that.
Yes. So I think that's why it's really important that if we listen to those people, what are they seeking to change? What are they wanting to improve? Are they wanting to get those chemicals out of their house? Are they wanting to sleep better? Are they wanting to have more energy? Are they wanting to make it so that their teenager doesn't have those horrible energy drinks, right? Whatever it is, what's their goal? And then, can we help them achieve that with that? And that's what's great is we have a lot of those products that can really help people along those goals.
I completely agree. Chris, thank you so much for your time. And before we wrap it up, is there one last thing that you'd like to share, whether it's like your favorite saying or kind of like what drives you or what you think people should like be passionate about or focus on? Is there like one last thing that you'd like to share with everybody?
I appreciate that. Well, first of all, again, thanks for having me, man. This is just an honor, and I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you bringing this podcast to people. It's a lot more relatable, and I appreciate you carrying on your dad's legacy too. That means a lot.
Thank you.
One of the things your dad talked about, and I think it's important, is your dad would end a lot of his presentations with being in gratitude. Right. And it's really easy, I think, to look at the negative parts of life, especially after these last few years, right?
Yeah.
How our relationships have changed, how our world has changed. I don't mean that as a political statement or anything like that. It just
in
is.
General.
Yeah. It just is, right? And so I really think that if we choose, we can live in gratitude and be grateful for what we have and appreciate what we have and then share that with others. So, I guess that's kind of where I would leave it. Is I really think that I really hope everybody listening to this can spend some time being in gratitude and sharing that with others. Text people, tell them that you appreciate them, call them, send them an email. I don't know, write them a letter if you still want to do that, right? So I mean, I'm grateful for Young Living. Again, I'm grateful for you having me on here, and just grateful for all the people.
Love it. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris Opfer is a Royal Crown Diamond with a great story, actually many great stories, and great perspective on Young Living. And this year, we are looking to hear more from inside our own community. So keep an eye out for us at events and maybe convention, and we'd love to connect and maybe hear and share your story on the podcast. 2023 is going to be a great year for all of us together. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Wild Drop. Remember, you can listen on iTunes, Spotify, on YouTube, and of course, our website at www.youngliving.com. Don't forget to oil up Young Living family. This is Jacob Young, dropping out. Take care.